But we just did our blitz. You asked Mitch this question about the running backs. So let's get into our position group a day breakdown and go to the RB position. We started with quarterbacks yesterday. Running back is way more interesting, I think, because they've got some decisions to make here. Austin Eckler is under contract and will be back. Brian Robinson is under contract and will also be back. Jeremy Nichols is the only free agent. Chris Rodriguez, the sixth-round pick a couple of years ago, still a couple of years left on his rookie deal. But while he's played very well, is kind of one of those guys back of the roster that you would think is always kind of on a bubble to be back the following season because he's listed fourth on the depth chart. But the big question is, you kind of feel good about Eckler and his role, pass catching back, 2-minute, 4-minute offense. McNichols leaves. Do you just elevate Rodriguez to the third guy, or do you go out and look for somebody like McNichols, who's more of that Eckler mold of shifty pass catcher? And then as far as B-Rob goes, are you willing to try one more time here with Brian Robinson, where every year it seems like another reason why it's close but no cigar? He's solid, but it's not great. But he is getting better. He had 3.9 yards per carry as a rookie, 4.1 last year, 4.3 this year. His attempts have been right around 185 to 205. He's been roughly around 800 yards throughout his career now in 3 straight seasons. You know how I feel. I've been beating the drum for a speedier home run hitting running back to replace him as the RB1 for a little while. But B-Rob is only 25. He doesn't make a lot of money. And you've got to acknowledge that his yards per carry have gone up each season he's been in the league.
They have. And buoyed by a couple very nice games. Regardless of, I mean, this is how you get your numbers anyway. Like you think about a major league hitter, you don't hit 300 every day. You hit, 400 for a month and 220 for a month, and you end up at the end of the year hitting 288. And you go, yeah, nice year. It's the average. So he had a handful of games where he was really, really good. The offensive line did well early on when teams weren't really sure how to handle stuff. You think of the Arizona game, 100-plus yards and a touchdown. The Giants, 133 yards, et cetera. Had some really nice ball games. But if you look game in and game out, there's of his, I think it was 14 that he played in, maybe 15 because he was banged up a bunch. The majority of them look, not even majority, overwhelming majority look like 11 for 36, 10 for 16, 5 for 10, 10 for 24. You see where I'm going. It ain't it. And I love the dude. Like, put all personal stuff aside. What he overcame, what he, kind of how he goes about his business.
Him being shot.
Yeah, he was shot in the knee. Not like the tip of his pinky, like in the knee. You need them as running backs, I would say, or as anybody, for God's sakes. But this is not the style that I think fits the best for this kind of offense, and really for most modern offenses. There are exceptions. I mean, look at freight trains like Derrick Henry that kind of continue to defy the age curve, and the number of Earl Campbells that we've seen that are awesome, and then sort of I don't know, kind of fall off a cliff, Eddie George style. Some guys defy that. To me, he looks like someone that's old and tired in his mid-20s because of how much he gets beaten up and how much he gets hit, and it's mean, it's disrespectful, but this is the league, man. It's unfair. It goes on with or without you. I need more scat back. I need more quick. I need more home run. I need a younger Austin Eckler type. They don't grow on trees. He's exceptional. And certainly when he was in his prime, he was. But I need to find that. I want to major in that. There's a role for Robinson. It's just not leading my team in touches.
Eckler, for me, has never even really been the home run hitter I'm looking for. I am looking for a strike up the band speedster. Like a guy that if he gets through the first level, it's curtains. I think pairing that back that I'm dreaming about and salivating over with Jaden Daniels would be awesome for this offense and for read option and for having him next to Daniels in the gun at the mesh point, because then you just have this really dangerous, lethal weapon. And it makes Daniels, who didn't really rip off huge runs that often this year. I mean, he was, don't get me wrong, the best running quarterback, not named Lamar Jackson in the National Football League, but that was mostly by way of volume. Like, you didn't have the 60, 70, 80-yard Robert Griffin against the Vikings run from Daniels. And I think part of it is you didn't really have to be worried about whoever the back was next to him, with all due respect to Jeremy McNichols nor Brian Robinson. You mentioned this. Robinson had 3 100-yard games. That's it. For a guy that is your starter who plays 15 games, 3 times he ran for 100, and he had plenty of 15-plus carry games in there. But in 2 of those 3 games, he ripped off a huge run. He had 40-yard runs against the Giants and the Titans. And for him, that is as good as it gets. Like, those are career-long runs. if you remember, both of them, I won't say they weren't fluky, but like the Titans' 40-yard touchdown was an untouched, drive a golf cart through it hole where he was going, if you were at the game, basically away from the tunnel they come out of, but he just runs through the gigantic hole, never gets touched. It would have been a 59, 79-yard touchdown. It was just a bust, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody would have scored it that was on their roster. That was the 40-yarder against the Titans as part of a 100-yard game for him.
And the Giants one was that weird pile up on a short yardage play, and then he squirts out the back and goes.
Everybody just kind of gets into a 20-man pile, and then he's somehow still standing as everyone's falling over, and he steps backward and then finds out no one's around me, and then he goes around the edge and he picks up 40. Still gets caught, by the way. But I need someone who can go for 60 or 70. So I just think Robinson is a really good RB2 that they've treated like an RB1, is basically how I would describe him. Stylistically speaking, I think he could be great in short yardage. We've seen him be really good on the goal line. You saw it again this past year. I mean, this is 13 touchdowns the last couple of seasons on the ground as a battering ram. That's the role for me. In a pinch, if he's got to go out and give you 15, 17, 18 carries because your starter's hurt, no problem. He was great at Alabama. He had a good career. He's a third-round pick, whatever. But I want speed. You lower the ceiling of your offense when you go with guys like him who are not scary. They don't worry you in open space. If he gets around the edge with no one around him, you'll get to him in 17, 19 yards on an angle. It's not what I want. I want oh my God, he's loose. Go get one, please. Find me Jahmyr Gibbs. And that guy doesn't exist. I get it. But look, you're not looking for him either. Mm-hmm. You're not going to find him if you keep looking for B-Rob and
respectfully, you keep drafting Chris Rodriguez. Perfectly fine players, but that's not what we're talking about.
Try to draft Jahmyr Gibbs once and see where that gets you.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I would sort of look at those same things that they applied last year in terms of athletic scores to the running back spot. That to me is something I would do pretty consistently every other year or however often I sort of would decide that round 4, round 5 range for me. I'd always try to find the guy that maybe went to Western Colorado State A&I or whatever, but doesn't have the ideal profile, but can really move, and maybe I can find someone that fits. At worst, he's my gunner on special teams, and we never hear from him again. But they need that. They need some explosion out of there. I'm with you. I mean, to me, the thing that I care about most is what you do in the pass game. And Robinson's actually not a bad receiver, and he's actually pretty decent in terms of pass pro. So he's better than you'd think there. But I need something way more dynamic. Again, you could see what would happen when Eckler was right and healthy. You got that Philly game up there. Eckler left, Eckler right. You're now in field goal range. Just on the opening, after the opening kickoff, right? You'd see it or Cincinnati when you and I were there. Pitch it to him this way, quick screen that way. You all of a sudden just picked up 25 yards, field position change. I need more guys that can do that. Eckler, I think right there at that 100 to 125 touch roll, I think is exactly right. I can't give him more than that because of injury. I need someone who can take some of those 200 plus touches of Robinson's and do more with them.
Yards per attempt are not everything. I understand that. But Eckler this year averaged a half yard per carry more than Robinson has at any point in the first 3 years of his career. Mm-hmm. And Eckler did it at 29 years old, battling through some injuries, right? The other thing is the way Robinson finished the season, and he had a really good game, I thought, against Detroit. You knew he wasn't going to be able to run the ball against Philly because nobody runs the ball against Philly. He was completely held in check, 10 carries, 16 yards against the Bucs. He was basically a non-factor in 2 of the playoff games. Detroit was terrible, and they were the opposite of Philly. Like, you and I could have run the ball against the Lions, and we knew that going into that game, they'd be able to. But the end of the season, 2 yards per carry against the Cowboys, 2.4 against the Eagles, 3.1 against the Saints. He had 21 for 65 in that game that they almost lost. 2.6 against Dallas. There were only a couple games in the second half of the season where he had any real explosiveness or wiggle to him. And he wasn't the only guy that couldn't run. They all struggled.
Right.
But sorry about it. Like, that was a big show me season, and you didn't show me. That's where we ended up, is I didn't get shown.
And the other note on that Saints game, by the way, remember that he had a long of 22. There was actually a pass that he caught, but they said it was just backwards enough that they called it a run. It was really about 20 for 35. Right? Because they were so determined that they'd be able to run the ball in that game, and they just couldn't, and they let New Orleans damn near come back and win it. I just can't beat my head against the wall right there. And I know that there's still this kind of last vestige of the thing that I sort of make fun of, that sort of the Neanderthal college football, the old school football guy, hat on a hat, Oklahoma drill, let's establish physicality downhill. And that battering ram is perfect for that. I just think that's not, and I know you want to establish some of that, so there's room for him on my roster and on my team and to get the football sometimes.
Yeah, football is still physical and violent.
It is.
And macho.
There's something to be said for that. I just can't have that guy get the most touches on my team by a factor of 100. See what I'm saying? He had 100 more touches than anyone else combined on my offense. That's not the most dynamic thing you can do.
My guess is the Eckler injury had a lot to do with that.
I agree with that. Yeah.
I get your point totally. And it's part of why your offense is going to lack explosiveness when you're choosing the let's get into a boxing match guy over the let's run away from you guy. To some extent, though, and you'll disagree with this, that's what they want to be. I mean, they've kind of proven that with a lot of the moves that they've made is that they would rather do the B-Rob thing. So I don't know if I'm going to get what I want.
Right.
Like what I want, the home run hitter, the speedster, I think they look at the Lions and they'd covet Montgomery over Gibbs. That's what's frustrating.
That's an interesting quandary, by the way. Do you think they think that, or they just inherited this? Because you weren't going to move on from the guys that were already here for cheap.
I just know how they used guys.
Yeah.
This year. I mean, there was something about B-Rob they really liked because Rodriguez was a better version of him, and they just kept going back to the well as the year went on, in my opinion. If you look at someone just sent me Football Insights team run blocking grades this season. They had the way that they chart it, Washington as the 28th best run blocking team in the league. So I'm not sitting here pretending like this is all on B-Rob. They did not do a good job in the second half of the year.
Agreed.
In the run game, unilaterally and collectively. That is irrefutable. But I still need speed.